I know my principals will not believe what I'm about to say. I'm about to lose my voice.
Am I supposed to be done?
And the principals won't go for that at all, I know. So maybe it'll come back to you here in just a second. This is a very, very special occasion this evening, and it's a celebration in every sense of the word. We are privileged to serve some of the finest young people one could imagine. Many of those young people come to us from different countries. They speak a language other than English as their native language, and we're here to really focus on the White House initiative on Hispanic education. And I think our nation is looking for great models of service to our immigrant children, models that can transfer anywhere in the country. So we're going to celebrate some of those really fine things here this evening. And more importantly, we're all going to be learners as we share one with the other how to maybe just get that little extra so that we can better connect our children to the learning. And that involves all of us. It involves great teachers. It involves moms and dads and family. It involves communities. And we've got a lot of special people here with us tonight. Marco Davis is the executive in charge of the White House Initiative. Alejandro Ceja is here. Mr. Borilla is here. We have panelists. Sharon Darling, who so many of you know with the National Center for Family Literacy, is here. And Sharon's played such a major role in helping us bring our programs of service forward. Mr. Bill Swab is here from the University of Arkansas. Maria Reith is here from the Department of Education. And what an advocate she is for children, and especially for our immigrant children. Our mayor is here, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. Our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Tony Wood, is here. We have a number of our school board members who've joined us. And very importantly, we're here together to celebrate excellence and service to our children. In Springdale, it really is all about the kids. This year, we're privileged to serve about 22,000 kids. Almost half those children are ELL children. And the Springdale story is, in my view, so very special, so phenomenal, really. It's taken place over the last 12 to 15 years, and how I've seen a staff, a community come together around service to children inspires me every day. You know, great communities deserve great schools. And in Springdale, Mayor, all of us together are working to make that happen. At the very center of this work has been a guiding theme that all of us who are invested in this school system understand fully. It's been with us for the last 30 plus years, and probably well beyond that. Simple words, really, but profound if you address them with the kind of passion and commitment that the teachers of the Springdale School District and the moms and dads in partnership with those teachers address it, and that's teach them all. Teach them all. How about a round of applause if you think that's proper? Well, all means all. That's all means. But it's so important, so powerful. And in this age of personalization of teaching and learning, perhaps never more poignant words spoken. So we're going to look together and think together for just a moment about teach them all. That's what we do here. We teach children to the highest levels of learning, and as we do, we begin to help our children understand the great potential and promise that each of them have. I've said this so many times, and I want to say it again. And I was encouraged today to never stop saying it, because I think it captures the sentiment and the heart of our team. It doesn't make a bit of difference to us whether a child comes to us from across the street or across the ocean. When they get to the schoolhouse door, they're one thing. They're our children. And to me, that is what has touched the heart of 1,500 plus teachers, another 1,000 plus support personnel, and a community that invests daily in its children. Another word that you'll hear a lot about in our comments here this evening, so I use that as kind of an introduction in my welcome, and that is the term partnerships. Partnerships. The Springdale School District is what it is today because of that term. Moms and dads investing with us. Teachers and kids working in partnerships. Business leaders working with kids and with teachers, all to try to help them advance and understand, again, the great potential and promise that they all have. Partnerships take on a lot of different shapes and sizes. Many of them spawned right here locally, in our classrooms, in our respective schools, but some go out across the state and then across the nation. 7 or 8 years ago, we began to forge a partnership with the National Center for Family Literacy. That was an outgrowth of the work of 3 phenomenal principals, our principal at Lee and Jones and Emdale Elementary, as they began to realize and take to heart the individual challenges that they had to serve children who had moved here from all around the world. They knew there was an age-old axiom, if you will, that we need moms and dads engaged with us in the process. We need them at the table. And the more they begin to think and dream and build relationships with Sharon Darling and the staff of the National Center for Family Literacy, a model was forged that has spread from those 3 schools to now 14 schools in our district, and on its way to being in each of our 30 schools. And that family literacy initiative, perhaps Sharon has done as much as any one initiative that we have tried to bring a community together in a unified way. You can imagine 15 or so years ago with families moving here by the hundreds, again, from around the world, trying to put down roots in a new region, in a new city, in a new culture. You can imagine there might be quite a gap between schools and moms and dads, quite a gap between moms and dads and city services. And that list goes on and on. So these principals and their teachers began to think what it would be like if we began to serve not just the children, but the moms and dads as well. Because moms and dads had to learn a new language. They had to learn a new culture. They had to learn how to make connections in this community. And so the Family Literacy Initiative started out of that partnership. It's been, as I said, one of the most beautiful things we've done. And there were a lot of partners with us. The Northwest Technical Institute was there and has stayed with us all these years, helping provide adult ed teachers for our Family Literacy Initiative. So partnerships are major. I wish you would enumerate with me in your mind, because I'll leave a lot of gaps in my comments. But in terms of bringing a united effort together to change, to make the transition, to invite children from all backgrounds in so they can learn at the highest possible level. Well, we did need moms and dads. And so moms and dads came. 4 days a week, 4 hours a day. They learned literacy skills and numeracy skills. They learned survival skills themselves. but at the same time, they sat side by side with their children, and they read together, and they did math together. And so literacy and numeracy and social and emotional well-being of the children and of the families has been a part of that great initiative. I was telling our special guest earlier that annually now we graduate 250 to 300 or more moms and dads, primarily Hispanic moms and dads, from this family literacy initiative. And then I asked them a question. Who might you think are the greatest advocates in this community for our teachers in the schools? What would your answer be, audience? Those moms and dads who built a relationship with the teachers, who were a part of the Family Literacy Initiative. They're there volunteering in the schools, helping every teacher, every school, and together we're taking this program forward. Thanks, Sharon Darling, will you, for all the work that she's done. And thank our great principals and teachers, and thank our moms and dads who've been a part of that program. One more round of applause. Will you do that for me? Well, it takes, if you're going to teach them all, it takes us all. It takes a school board, it takes a mayor, it takes a city council, it takes a business community, it takes a professional educational community, all working together to serve Springdale kids. Our University of Arkansas has been a part of that program. Dr. Diana Gonzalez-Worthen, Dr. Janet Pinner Williams, Al Lopez, DJ Torres, and so many others have helped us all along the way. And we're just doing our work. We're doing what Springdale does best, and that's take care of our kids. So, Springdale teachers and principals as a team are committed to the slogan of teaching them all. In order to accomplish our work, and we're looking back over 5, 10, 15 years, we're primarily an all-white faculty at the time this immigration movement started, but our teachers are learners. They're lifelong learners. They love to learn right alongside their kids. They are the classic example, in my view, of an open mindset and the willingness to learn so that they can open doors and connect kids to the learning. Hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of hours of professional development to try to understand the cultural transition, to try to understand how to best relate to our young people who were just being introduced to the English language. Now, we're well along with that conversation today. We've come so far. But principals, think with me about the learning opportunities that we've had together as we realized how important it was as our ELL children explained to us they love to work in groups. It bothered them to work in isolation because maybe they didn't have all the skills on that particular day, certainly that a group might have. And if they could work collectively, if they could really borrow from the family unit that had so richly supported them at home, then they could do better in school. So cooperative learning became very big. Then we began to look at the gradual release of responsibility, probably the largest professional development initiative ever undertaken in the state of Arkansas. And the whole idea was to shift control of the learning from the teacher who stood in front of the class to every child being more and more in control of their own learning. And we're still refining and bringing that forward today. We were very interested in where our children were when they entered the system, and we wanted to know how they were doing after 2 weeks or a month or 6 weeks. And so this idea of formative assessment began to take root, and today is the centerpiece of our school system. We created support systems around every child, and we're going back many years now to bring all this forward. Whatever tool that we could use to connect our kids to the learning became very powerful to us. So we talked about manipulatives in music and food and cultural events. And then we learned how to celebrate the small successes and the large successes. And there was respect, respect, respect every step of the way. And here are the things that our ELL children have said to me, frankly, even in the last 6 weeks or so as I've talked to them about tonight's event. Those children said to me, and I expect these words would resound with each of us, when my teacher says, "I believe in you," it means the world to every child. I believe in you. I care about you. I'm here for you. You can do this. I will help you. Those are the words of Springdale teachers that have resonated with children trying to find their place in a new community. Our teachers guiding our ELL students individually in small groups through career planning initiatives, college-going opportunities, really planning personal orientations for career and college opportunities, writing grants and developing after-school programs that could extend the learning for each and every child. These are the kind of things that make all the difference to a young person who's trying to find their niche. Every teacher being a personal advisor, focusing every day on children's well-being. Certainly the cognitive skills of numeracy and literacy, but their social skills, their emotional skills. And think of all the work that we've done to make our schools the safe place. All of the walking trails, all of the places for families to come and become healthy together. All of this becomes a part of what it means to teach them all. I'll close my comments this way. And it's just an observation, and I wonder, for those of you who've been a part of it for many years, what your observation would be. But let's look back over the last just 15 years. The first 5 years of that 15-year period, the focus seemed to be so heavily on helping our ELL children understand, hey, school works. You can get a high school diploma. We can do this together. We'll help you. Yes, sir, and they did. Now let's move forward the next 5 years. Kids knew that now that they could get the high school diploma, and they were standing right alongside those native Springdalians who had grown up here, et cetera. Their graduation rates were very similar. Frankly, their academic performance was very similar. And so the natural progression, well, yes, I want to pursue a great career. And teachers, yes, I'll help you with that. But what about higher education? What might that look like? And it seemed like for that next 5-year period, we had kids going to four-year institutions all over the country. But by and large, the focus was on the community college for that period of time. That's my observation. And now fast forward to today. Our college-going rate for our ELL children is phenomenal. These youngsters are, again, they're demonstrating their great potential and promise. They have the language, they have the content, they understand how school works, and they're flying. I've told this story so many times, and I may change it a little bit to suit my purpose, okay? But it is so very beautiful, and it absolutely touches my heart. A Thursday afternoon in the spring, around 4 o'clock, I'm in my office, and the phone rings, and this beautiful young lady, student here at Springdale High School, calls and says, "Dr. Owens, I've got to come down and show you something." I said, "Great, come on down, we'll visit." I knew Mr. Jinks, what great work she'd been doing at the high school. And so she comes in, and she's just gleaming, and she shows me a letter from the University of Arkansas. And that letter offers her one of the most prestigious scholarships at the university. And so we have a great time celebrating. The next day, the following Friday, about 4 o'clock, phone rings. And she's on the phone again. And she said, "Dr. Rollins, I've got another letter. Can I come down and show it to you?" And so she came down. This letter was a full scholarship to MIT. this young lady will be a difference maker for good, for herself, for her family, for her school, for her community. But frankly, she can be a difference maker for the good, for the world. And those are the kind of things that can happen when you embrace children and help them find their true potential and promise. The story of the Springdale school system is the story of our teachers and our kids working together around the theme of Teach Them All. I want you to see just a 3 or 4 minute video clip, and it just demonstrates what I just said. Please enjoy.
Springdale, I feel like it's just one big family. I mean, no matter what happens, we're always together.
I teach kids, and they speak a universal language, which is pretty cool.
I really appreciate just the diversity that we have here in Springdale and just the love that we have for each and every one of our students and our families that come through our doors.
And we have kids from all different areas of the world, all different languages, but the thing is, kids are kids.
Knowing a lot about your students, knowing their hearts, gives you a chance to then open up their minds.
Our class sizes are very small, and so we built that kind of family relationship. All of us are friends, and so we all support each other, and we know what we're going through, and the teachers know you on a one-on-one basis.
My definition of a great teacher is just having that great relationship. You can always have a teacher that can tell you what to do, when to do it, and how you do it, but if you don't have that relationship, how can you get it done?
If you don't know about your students, their interests, their activities they're involved in, their career plans or their hopes and dreams, their families, there are things that they enjoy doing most, I don't know that we can make the connections that are needed in order for us to succeed in giving them the skills that they need today.
Students need to feel like they have the teacher's attention, and they have more than just that teacher-student bond. Take them as like a parent, like someone close to them. And that's when they'll start listening to them and working hard in the classroom.
I knew by first grade that I wanted to be a teacher. It was because of my first grade teacher, Miss Lynn Ryan, and she's still in the Springdale district. She really was a great encourager, and I looked up to her. And I remember when I was 6 and 7 years old, I would say, oh, I would love to be a teacher just like her, have my own classroom, teach kids. I thought it was amazing what she did.
One of my teachers, Miss Bass, we've done a lot of stuff together, like Islander Club, and also I've been to a lot of different field trips with her. And I've got to know her pretty good, and I take her like a second mom because she's helped me in a lot of ways inside and outside of the classroom.
In kindergarten, I had, I don't really remember her name, I had some teachers, I think it was Miss Ibarra, actually, ESL teacher. She helped me with my English, which was very instrumental for me. If I don't know English, then, how am I going to be able to, study?
I was the only one who spoke Spanish in the class. No one else knew that. And then once more kids started coming in, my teachers would use me as an interpreter.
I think diversity of our population is essential in education. I love learning about their culture, what they are interested in, their traditions, and I think that enriches our classrooms whenever we have that.
Anytime that we can build a relationship with the kids, the parents, the entire family and community, it's a very powerful experience for us, but also for the kids. When the kids can trust you and come to you for information about school or about life or anything that they're experiencing, it's very powerful to put a positive impact on their life.
That open door policy to the families brings them in, and I think they feel comfortable here. They see that we care and that we want to help them and we want to educate their children.
If someone tells you, I'm very proud of you, that means the world to them. I know that meant the world to me, especially, when I was in elementary. It's just like everyone seems, to me it seemed like I was at the bottom of the class, it seemed to me that sometimes I'm just like, I'm not understanding this. But whenever a teacher says, good job, whenever you feel that, you're not understanding that you're doing a bad job, that you're not getting it right, it's just like, well, you know what, I can do this. And it's just really motivational. Those little things like that make the difference. It really does.
The teacher goes beyond the academic. I mean, we get to meet new kids every year and build these relationships with these students, and they are so important because we are really their cheerleaders as teachers.
It's like in high school, it's like we're taking college classes already because of all the work that we have to do and all the outside school homework that we do. It's like prepares us.
Through everything I did in the high school, I met so many people at the University of Arkansas, and they all guided me through the path to get my full ride scholarship. I met all these professors who know me and recommended me, and I just feel so comfortable at the University of Arkansas.
I have really enjoyed Springdale because they're always on the cutting edge, and they always provide their teachers with the best professional development.
They taught me the ways about college, what not to do, what to do, and I think I'll be okay. Springdale's taught me a lot.
Will you say it loudly? Teach them all. Teach them all. I have one of my dearest friends in the world has driven a long way, and I want to invite our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Tony Wood, to come up and just say a few brief words. Give him a big hand. Will you do that?
One of the comments that was made by one of the teachers there was the term cheerleader. I think of it more in the spirit of being a missionary, in watching what was shared tonight. And for a number of years, I've watched what has happened in Springdale, Arkansas. It's a phenomenal story of what committed people can do for kids. I'm so proud of what you do, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you a few minutes tonight.
Well, that partnership I talked about certainly goes to our state capital and to our national capital as well. But a very important element of the partnership is our work with our local mayor, our local city officials. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the mayor of Springdale, Mr. Doug Sprouse.
Thank you. Dr. Rollins, if I'd known you were losing your voice, I would have prepared longer remarks. But it's always a privilege for me to get to say a good word about our city. But I will be very brief. My kids, Sandy and I have 3 kids. I grew up here in Springdale, graduated from Springdale High School in 1975. And obviously it was a much different place then, and much smaller. But Sandy and I, our 3 kids, they began school in the late 80s, and then on through the 2004, 2005. And so they saw a tremendous amount of change as well, and changes in Springdale School District. I was privileged to serve on the board for 10 years before I became mayor, beginning in 1999. And I'll tell you, and I was talking with one of my kids not too long ago, actually, and about their education experience in Springdale. Obviously, they all got a tremendous education. We're very blessed and very thankful, and very, one of the things one of them said though was about more on the social side. Besides the nuts and bolts of education and the great education they got, they were thankful that through their educational experience here in Springdale, that not everyone they had a class with looked and talked just like they did. And that really hit me, how we've changed and how Springdale, it made me very, very proud of our city and of our school district. in the way we have embraced this change. You know, change can be scary. And here I grew up here. And for many people many of my people my age who grew up here in Springdale, change and the unknown can be scary. And I tell you, I couldn't be. Is it more proud or prouder? We got any conjugators? I think it's prouder, isn't it? Proud, prouder, proudest. Look here, I don't even have English as a first language. So, but anyway, I couldn't be prouder of our city, of our schools, and the way we have embraced this change. You know, I see a couple of our officers back there from the Springdale Police Department, and talking about the city just for a minute. We have moved toward this change, I think, in a way that is exemplary, and we realize, you know, that all our residents are our residents, and everyone needs to know why we do code enforcement, and why we have building codes, and why we require licenses, and why we all these things that help all of our residents. And so that's why I'm so excited about this recognition and about working together as we move forward to continue to help not only with our school district, but with our city and all our services to educate everyone about how we can be the best citizens and best residents of the city of Springdale. Because whether that's better for everyone, for all of our residents, whether you've been here 70 years or 7 days. And we're moving that direction. We continue to move that direction, and I'm just so proud of our city and the way we've embraced this change, and we'll continue to embrace it and continue to improve for the betterment of all our residents. You know, when I'm a Christian, and God says He's no respecter of persons, and we're placed on this earth, and God leaves us here with a purpose, and that's to make a difference in the lives of others, and we glorify Him when we do that, and in making a difference in the lives of others. He didn't put any qualifiers in that. We're to make a positive difference in the lives of others, whoever He allows in our life, and I know there are teachers in this room, there are administrators in this room, there are people who provide services in this room, and I want to thank you because you're doing that. You're allowing God to use you to make a positive difference in the lives of whoever He brings into your life, and He brings them there for a purpose. And we have a great mission for us. You know, missionaries was mentioned. We have a great mission, and that is to continue the excellence in education, the excellence in city services for everyone, for all of our residents, so that we can have a better place to live. Everybody wants a safe, secure area to live where their children and where they can succeed. And that's what Springdale has been and will continue to be. So thank you for your part in that. I want to thank the White House Initiative for your recognition and for being here, and for as we work together moving forward. This is a great privilege for me just to be able to be here and welcome you and thank you for all that you've done and all that we'll continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Rawlings. My name is Alejandra Ceja. I'm the Executive Director of the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. It is an honor to be here with you all. Buenas tardes a todos por acompañarnos. Mi nombre es Alejandra Ceja y soy la directora de la iniciativa de la Casa Blanca para la excelencia y educación de la comunidad hispana. I am just so thrilled. Just these intros, I think we're going to have a wonderful discussion. Our initiative is focused on increasing the educational outcomes and opportunities for Hispanic children. We are housed at the Department of Education. We work closely with Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan, who has launched his annual back-to-school bus tour talking about the partnerships and the progress that we are seeing in communities across the country, and how we can take what's happening here in Springdale and share it with other communities that are seeing an increase of immigrants and are struggling with how to better provide services to them. Now, schools in the United States have always welcomed new immigrant children to their classrooms. According to most recent data, there were more than 840,000 immigrant students in the United States and more than 4.6 million English learners. There's something magical happening here in Springdale that we need to share with those other communities, the way you have embraced this population in your school districts. We want to be able to talk about those best practices and talk about those challenges and how can what we learn here today be shared with other communities and the work that we will be doing as the White House Initiative to ensure that all children, regardless of income, regardless of race or zip code, have access to a quality education, that we work together to close that opportunity gap that continues to persist, in particular for Hispanic students. We have a long way to go, but what we're hearing and seeing here in Springdale is a testament of what we can replicate across this country. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. I want to highlight some members of my team that are here with me and give them recognition because they are definitely the individuals that make all this happen. Marco Davis, our Deputy Director. Robert Gomez with the Department of Education. And Emmanuel Caudillo. So we're looking forward to this discussion, and it's really an opportunity to not only hear from our distinguished panel, but to hear from you all, and to have a discussion that's ongoing, that just doesn't end after today. Please know that our office is a resource. We are working very hard with stakeholders across the country to better provide those key resources and break down that information barrier that continues to persist. Many times we walk into high schools and we ask students to raise their hand if they've heard of FAFSA. And I live in a world of acronyms in Washington, D.C., so I sometimes can forgive when people haven't heard of certain acronyms, but FAFSA is really important for us because the Department of Education offers more than $150 billion annually in financial aid. And so that's that starting point we need all of our high school students to be aware of. And not just for them, but for their parents. There's so many resources at our disposal, and it's our job to make sure that we can work in communities across the country and make sure that those information barriers are torn down, make sure that our students and our parents have the resources that they need to be successful. So I want to thank you all. I know you're all very busy, and you've chosen to be with us here today, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. And I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Nicolas Peria from the Cisneros Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you everyone for being here today. It is a great honor to be here with such a distinguished panel. I want to tell you a little bit about the Cisneros Center for New Americans. Henry Cisneros, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under Bill Clinton, founded the Cisneros Center to partner with communities to empower immigrants and their families to achieve their American dream, to build clear avenues of opportunity to ensure that immigrant families know that they can learn English, that they understand the importance of financial literacy, and what we're here to discuss today, understand the importance of education and how the educational system works in the United States. We're very lucky to have found 3 exceptional individuals to take on this work here locally. 3 fellows, if I could actually ask you to stand up. Jacob, Jessica, and Jacob is all the way back there. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet the 3 fellows, I do encourage you to do so. They are here to bring the mission of the Cisneros Center to Springdale and to Northwest Arkansas, and to partner with those organizations that are doing exceptional work like these that are represented here on stage. I just want to add a personal note. I was born here, actually in Virginia, but very soon moved to Colombia, where my family was from. 12 years later, we moved here, back to the US, to what was a foreign home to me. And it took me stepping into the classroom as a teacher and working with students that were still making this country their own to understand those blessings that had been bestowed upon me. My parents were educated and they knew what success looked like. I went to an excellent school, but most importantly, my community and my family believed deeply that the American dream should be a reality for everyone. And it is an honor to be here interacting with these folks who are making sure that every family in Springdale has the same opportunities that were available to mine. We're going to spend some time today talking about the path that immigrant families take and the importance of the school system in ensuring the educational attainment of students. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for the panel, for taking the time, and I'm excited for the conversation that's ahead. Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead, and you've heard from Dr. Rawlings, but let me just share, as superintendent of the Springdale School District since 1982, we have seen a demographic shift from less than 1% English language learners to 44% English language learners, and he's opened 20 schools and an ever-expanding pre-K program. Through it all, Dr. Rawlings has sought and procured community member support, enabling Springdale to make available to all its families the very best in public education. We're also joined today by Ms. Sharon Darling, the president and founder of the National Center for Families Learning. Ms. Darling serves as an advisor on education issues for governors, policymakers, business leaders, and foundations. She's also well known for deploying family literacy, parents and children learning together as an intergenerational pathway to literacy and self-sufficiency in hundreds of cities and communities throughout the nation. We are also joined by Dr. Bill Schwab. He's with the University of Arkansas. Professor Schwab is the chair of the Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice in the William Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences and was named interim dean of Fulbright College from 2008 until 2011. His book, The Right to Dream, The Dream Act, Immigration Reform and America's Future, has been released by the University of Arkansas Press in March 2013. This book advocates comprehensive immigration reform, and he is also starting a new book on Northwest Arkansas. And finally, we are joined by Mireya Reif, co-founder and executive director of the Arkansas United Community Coalition. Inspired by her experiences growing up in Fayetteville, Arkansas as the daughter of a Mexican immigrant, Reif comes to AUCC with a 14-year career in the field of international political development, working across 5 continents with American nonprofit organizations. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. So I'd like to turn it over to you all to please share a little bit about the work that you are doing here.
I've given a good set, y'all.
I'm Sharon Darling, as you heard earlier, and we have worked with Springdale for a number of years on family literacy. We brought something to Springdale that we thought was very important for the families who were coming to Springdale that didn't speak the language, that were immigrants to the community, and that was family literacy, an approach to education that brings the entire family together and strengthens the family in the process of educating both generations. We never dreamed that what would happen in Springdale was so magical and magnificent that we have taken the lessons we've learned from Springdale all across the nation. We came with lessons, we came with training and technical assistance, and we wrapped our arms around this community and this school system. But what happens now is that we've taken their wonderful work and we're able to spotlight that for others across the nation. So it's being replicated in many, many other cities, the wonderful work that's been done here. So our approach to education is really bringing families together, that it is about 2 generations, that all of our research tells us that what happens in the home is critical to the success of the child. So we believe everything is central to the family unit, and we must educate 2 generations. Springdale has done such a marvelous job with it, and I just am so honored to be sitting next to Dr. Rollins. He is a superintendent that if we could clone him and put him in every district in this nation, we would no longer have the challenges with the achievement gap or the lag behind of our ELL children throughout the country. So it's an honor and privilege to be here with such wonderful people in Springdale, and the hard work that the teachers and principals have done, and especially the leadership of Dr. Rollins. So I just needed to say that.
It's wonderful to be here this evening. I'm a college professor, and we can't talk without a PowerPoint. So, Paul, can you... And the quiz will be a short essay and multiple choice. So, here we go. Can I have the first slide, please? I'm a community sociologist, and I've been studying immigration and urban phenomena for the last 35 years. And since 2008, I have been looking at and studying the characteristics as well as the needs of Hispanics in Northwest Arkansas. As you all know, the federal government has the sole responsibility in the areas of naturalization, but they do very, very little in terms of integrating our newest residents into the fabric of our communities. That responsibility falls to our neighborhoods and our faith organizations and other actors. And for children, by far the most important institution are the schools. And that's why, Superintendent Rollins, your comments were so inspiring, and thank you. I've been living here for over half of my life. And I like to remind everybody in this room that all students, all children in the United States have the right to a K through 12 education because of a landmark Supreme Court ruling called Platter v. Doe. If you get a chance, listen to the recording of the arguments. It's inspirational. Next slide, please, Paul. As a sociologist, I thought I'd give you an overview rather than focusing in on Springdale itself. And if you are interested in the topic, the Pew Research Center is a wonderful source of nonpartisan analysis of immigration and other interests. This study was important because it was looking at the second generation and asked the question, how are they doing? And in the 4 major areas, the answer is they're doing well, they're doing good. If we look at segregation, that is a very, very sensitive measure of how immigrant groups are moving into the fabric of our society. Hispanic Americans have a segregation index of about 40. We look at African Americans, especially in cities like Chicago and Detroit and Toledo, their segregation index is in the high 80s and the low 90s. So Hispanics in the United States tend to live in suburbs. The number has remained relatively constant over the last couple of decades, but things are changing and improving. How does the second generation do in terms of income and occupations? I mean, the answer to that question is very positive as well. Incomes are rising in the second generation. Occupational status is improving, and the movement in the professions is rising dramatically. One argument I hear from the anti-immigration folks quite often is we're going to be a Spanish-speaking and English-speaking country. Have you heard that as well? Well, it's farthest from the truth. 85% of Hispanics in the second generation either speak only English or speak English with high proficiency. And then finally, the gold standard of assimilation integration into a society is intermarriage. And 24% of Hispanics and 26% of Asians marry someone outside the group in the second generation. So we are doing what we've always done, and that is integrating our newest members of this society into the fabric of our society. Paul, can I have the next slide, please? I think this is a remarkable slide. When asked, do you think being able to get a college education has meaning for the American dream? Take a look at Hispanics versus whites versus African Americans. They lead. Or the next question, when you think about the American dream, is it something which has meaning to you personally? Look at the same data. But those are attitudes. Let's see how this is translated into reality. Next slide, please. remarkable changes in a single decade. And I think the most remarkable is that Hispanics now exceed whites in terms of college enrollment. They have a different educational trajectory. They often start in a 2-year institution. They often go to a regional campus of a 4-year institution. They take longer to graduate, but the fact is that the American dream is real to them, and there is a realization that upward social mobility and integration in our society, the best way to do that is through higher education. Next slide, please. I became Dean of Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences in 2008, and Chancellor Gerhardt had just become Chancellor, and he took us, a couple busload of us, down to Pettagine Mountain and forced us to be there for a couple days. But we had a retreat, and I gave a presentation on Hispanics in Northwest Arkansas. And I had just finished a 4-year study on this community. And I stood in front of the leadership of our campus and I said, a tsunami is coming and we are not ready. And I went over the demographics. And could we go to the next slide, please? University of Arkansas has experienced remarkable growth, about 1,000 students per year for the last 7 years. But I think the next slide, please, is very, very encouraging. Because of the work of Springdale and the other schools in the Northwest Arkansas community, we're beginning to see that tsunami that I was talking about, a remarkable increase in diversity at our institution. And we are committed as an institution to having a campus which reflects the characteristics of the region and the state in which we live. Next slide, please. We hit a record of almost 5,000 diverse students this fall. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that Hispanic students led the way. And this is just the beginning. And 20% of our incoming freshman class are from diverse backgrounds, 18% of our student body. Next slide, please. You can see the growth of Hispanic students at the University of Arkansas. Let me finish my remarks by Luis Restrepo is the person. Luis, right? Okay. He works in our Office of Diversity, and he has done a remarkable job. Next slide, please. And this shows some of his efforts, some of our attempts to, one, prepare students to come to the University of Arkansas. For example, ACT prep courses during the summer. Providing the support that they need when they arrive on our campus through mentoring and counseling and academic support. By providing a social environment that is enriching and supportive. For example, we now have a Hispanic fraternity and sorority. We have a chapter of LULAC. We have the Natural Dreamers. We have professional organizations in engineering and in business and other college designed specifically for Latinos. So what I'd like to share with you tonight is that we want a diverse campus. We are putting our resources where our commitment is, and we hope to see these numbers increase with the same intensity that I showed you a couple slides ago. Thank you.
I'm afraid I'm a community advocate and a public official, so I do not have a PowerPoint presentation, but just some personal comments about the sincere privilege that I've had of working with the Springdale School District and a long relationship with them. First and foremost, growing up here in this area, in the sister city, Fayetteville, I have to agree with Mayor Sprouse's comments that I don't think if somebody would have told me at the time growing up here that I would be sitting before you all today, one, to talk about Hispanics in Arkansas, and two, in the public capacity in which I serve, which is the first Latina on the State Board of Education for our state, and the first Latina at this point to have voting power over policy in our our education system in Arkansas. And I think that's just a tremendous testament to our state and its openness and willingness to really accommodate to what was, demographically speaking, a very quick change for our community. I empathize with the comments previously said of very much feeling and knowing I was the only Hispanic growing up at that time. And then now returned to see Mexican restaurants and folks greeting me in our native language, to hear in the school Spanish, to see diverse students that look like me and I look like them. I think has just been a tremendous benefit to our state and to this district. And I really do have to applaud Dr. Rollins, Mayor Sprouse, and the leadership of the Springdale community because as happens whenever there is a quick demographic shift, there is sort of a questioning process and sometimes a growing pains that goes with that as a community. Not everybody was equally convinced at that time that diversity was something that was positive for this region. But you never felt that ever in the schools. And what Dr. Rollins said of these are our kids was something that rung very true. It wasn't a question of who are these new kids, do we even want them here? But it was, no, these are the kids in our classroom and we are going to serve them. And we in Springdale have a high quality of education and a standard to achieve, and we are going to apply that to these children as well. And that has been something that is very obvious and telling, not just with the numbers, but again, the general community that has been developed around Springdale and the district here. So my role on the state board many times is lifting up Springdale as an exemplary model. I take a lot of pride as a Hispanic American, as somebody who's interested in our English language learners in school, in being able to highlight what has been piloted here. And again, not just for my colleagues on the State Board of Education, but even at the federal level with various national associations on which I serve. And I have to say, it never comes without question, really, are there Hispanics in Arkansas? Actually, my last time I had the privilege of meeting with some colleagues from the White House was 1 year ago when I was honored by the White House with their Cesar Chavez Champions of Change Award, and had the privilege of meeting President Obama himself in the Oval Office. And when I introduced myself, he did indeed pause and say, "Are there Hispanics in Arkansas?" And I'm like, "Yes, Mr. President, there are." And I'm very proud to be standing here today as somebody that I like to proudly think is a product of Arkansas and all that Arkansas has to offer. And it's that pride that also takes me into my day job and what I have a privilege of doing every day, which is working with so many Hispanic, Marshallese, and other immigrant children and families through the advocacy role of Arkansas United Community Coalition. Again, this wasn't something that I had necessarily envisioned on myself growing up here in Arkansas at that time, not knowing, again, thinking that this could have been a career option or opportunity. I actually have to thank members of the audience here today, like Al Lopez and others, that when I came back to Arkansas and looked humbly to just be a volunteer in the community, said, "Hey, Mireya, you know, we need you. Why don't you bring some of those skills and those lessons from other places right here to your home state?" And despite my hesitancy and my own questioning of whether I could have something to offer, I allowed myself to be persuaded, and I'm tremendously grateful at having this most personal journey today, which is to walk alongside our immigrant families as they find their own voice and their own leadership. And so we at Arkansas United Community Coalition, we focus on organizing, but we also focus on advocacy, and that's the other role with which I've had the privilege of collaborating with the Springdale School District. One of the things that I just tremendously am grateful for, and I think I can speak for us immigrant families and being grateful for, is the Springdale School District never questions somebody's legal status. You never feel that somebody, because of a different legal status or not having legal status in this country, doesn't feel welcomed here with opportunities and otherwise. And I applaud the proactiveness of the teachers here, many of you who are here today, who have opened your doors, but more importantly, your hearts and your minds to hearing about the different situations of folks that don't have legal status in this country. Here in Arkansas, we have approximately 11,000 undocumented youth. And thank you to President Obama, we now have deferred action for childhood arrivals, and 3,800 of those children have temporary status in this state and in this country, and are currently able to now, for the first time, open their possibilities to higher education, open their possibilities to career options as well. But this isn't a permanent solution. It's one that doesn't extend in-state tuition to our youth, and Dr. Rollins has been a tremendous advocate in bringing that to the attention of our policymakers who have the opportunity to change that. But then it also doesn't, at this stage, allow them necessarily the opportunity at different licenses. Like Dr. Restrepo, who's helped us bring attention to the fact that our DACA students can't become teachers, although we know that growing our own teachers is one of those successful strategies that Springdale does do, but we're still limiting several students in those possibilities, or getting medical licenses and other professional licenses. So there's work to be done. And again, here in Arkansas, where there's a tremendous cognizance and recognition from our business communities to our political leaders about the need for change. Obviously, change like this comes slowly, and change like this does meet some resistance, but you never feel that in the halls of Springdale, the Springdale School District, or many of the other districts that are here. So it's with them and with confidence that I feel that we really are going to achieve the full potential of all of our students, and Arkansas is going to be better for it.
Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to open this to everyone, but start with you, Dr. Rollins. Based on your experience, what do you think is the greatest need that immigrant families and their children bring when they come to Springdale and when they come to the Springdale School District?
We use this symbol quite a bit. My principals will laugh with me. Everybody put your hands above your head. Okay? Principals, we got it? This circle represents who we are. Nobody wants to be outside that circle. So making the connection, making sure everybody feels a part, that they're important. And I use the term because I see it reflected over and over again, respect, respect, respect. I think when you can build those relationships with moms and dads and with those children, there is no limit to what you can do in terms of making the connections so that they can learn. So making everybody understand we're in this together and we care about you. And whatever resources we have, we want to share. But just as importantly, we want to look at the resources that you bring to the equation, because we know there's enormous strength in multiculturalism, and we're seeing that played out day in and day out. So it starts with that. We're just human beings. We're just folks. We have needs, and we all. And how many times we heard said, and Bill said it so well. These children have dreams, and if one can help them connect those dreams to reality, again, they can soar, and they are soaring.
I think to add to that the parents have needs also. Absolutely. And when they come, one of their needs is to understand the school system, to understand the systems and their community, as the mayor said earlier, and the services available to them and the resources. But they have needs to interact with their children, They came here for a better life for themselves and their children. That's why they came. So they're desperate to get that. And they really want to know what they can do to be a part of that. They want to learn English. They want to be a part of the community. They want to be able to help their children. And sometimes what we do with families who are coming to us who have strong, strong culture of family. I mean, family is central to a lot of the people who are coming to our country. They have a strong sense of work ethic. They have a strong sense often of religion. They have a strong sense of community. And sometimes we educate the child and not the parent. And the child starts growing away from the parent. The parent can't speak English. The child gets assimilated into the culture. If we can just step back a step and say, if if we could just also educate the parent with the child, help the parent sit side by side with the child and know what's expected of their child so they feel a part of their future. I think, you know, the need for parents not to have to work at a backbreaking job all day and then go home at night and leave their family again and go out and try to learn English so they can get a better hold on the American dream so that they can move up the economic ladder. If we can instead say, why don't you bring your children with you? Why don't you sit down with them and talk about your day, and then you learn English and let them learn some things that they need in order to succeed in their school. So if we can just step back and think about this, that we really can do something that's more holistic. And in doing that, you'll get the results that we've seen over 25 years across this country. In 50 cities we're working, in communities everywhere and around the world. We're seeing that when parents get engaged with their children that way, when parents become learners and start to get on with their lives, they start to climb out of poverty, but more importantly, they start to help their children be successful. And the next generation is a very different one in terms of education, as you can see.
In 2007, I led a team of 6 researchers where we looked at the needs and characteristics of our Northwest Arkansas community. And in the conclusion of my report, we talked about something called social capital. Something called bridging social capital, and that is capital that spans groups. And then there is, Donna, what's the other kind? Pardon? Bonding social capital. Senior moment. Bonding social capital can be described as superglue. It's what holds groups together. Bridging social capital is the WD-40. That makes communities work well and efficiently. What we found were separate and unequal communities that had all of the bonding social capital they needed. They had very, very little bridging social capital. And that's the type of social capital you build community with. So, the role of schools is central in developing bridging social capital. And Superintendent Rollins describes some of those efforts to bring the entire family to the school system, to provide English, to provide support. But it also has another role, and that would be to bring different communities together and to provide forums whereby some bridging social capital can be built here, maybe even in this room.
One of my favorite sayings is that education is the great equalizer. And the reality is, I do feel here in Springdale, and obviously the recognition it's receiving here today, speaks to the fact that a quality education is something that is indeed accessible to all of our immigrant families here in Arkansas, and especially in the Springdale School District. I think if I had to identify a challenge, and this isn't unique specifically just to the field of education, but I would say more broadly in the service delivery industry with our immigrant community, and that is communication. And having effective communication with parents in different styles and different systems so that they can be aware of the great opportunities that do exist. The Family Literacy Program, as has been highlighted here today, is par none, not just for Arkansas, but for the rest of the United States. But there are still families that don't even know they have this as an opportunity. And that's because we're dealing with folks that U.S. education or education in general is foreign to them. They themselves maybe didn't finish high school, and so this concept of a strong relationship with the school system is one that wasn't natural to them coming in here. These are individuals, many of which that live underneath the poverty line, and may be working 2-3 jobs a day to help keep their families afloat. So for them to have time to come in, talk with teachers, talk with counselors is not something that's always readily accessible. And then there's the whole digital divide that we frequently talk about in other parts of the state, but I would say also exists even in this part of the state when you start breaking it down into some of our different socioeconomic classes and our immigrant classes, in that internet is not something that's in every immigrant family's home. They all have smartphones, but they don't all necessarily have internet. And so they go to different resources to necessarily get information, whether it's smartphones, word of mouth, or other things. And this is something that as Arkansas in general, we need to get better at, not making it so haphazard about communication, being more systematic in how we get information out there, maybe leveraging some of these new tools and technologies. I really do have to applaud so many of the teachers that I hear about that literally will go door to door to their students, to their families to hear about these situations. But again, that's leaving it up to chance and that teacher. And I think that there's something that we might be able to do here to better support that, so that all these opportunities are equally known to all the families that would and want to take advantage of them.
Let me just say that I'm just so impressed with the work that you all are doing, and I'd love to have you come with me across the country to share those best practices of what's happened here in Springdale. So I want to just throw it out. We've heard about the why it's important to integrate families, but could we just dig a little bit deeper into the how? How did you, knowing when you were talking about that tsunami that's coming, how did you have to convince the leadership? How did you bring that change about? And what advice would you give those other communities that aren't as open to change as what we've seen here in Springdale?
Just creating the opportunity is a phenomenal draw. There's such a wonderful spirit among our Hispanic families. They know, even if it's intuitively, that their future lies in educating their children and educating their families. I would tell you this story, and to me it's riveting. Early morning, November, cold, our family literacy program is getting ready to convene at one of our elementary schools. And I happened to be in the school that morning, and it was well before 8 o'clock. It was probably closer to 7. But I saw an individual standing in the hallway of the school. And I walked down and said hello, and we had a wonderful conversation. This mom had worked all night in one of the plants, but she did not want to be late. She did not want to miss a moment of her opportunity to learn and for her opportunity to learn with her child. Those examples and my principals could speak to that repeatedly. There's a hunger among our immigrant families to learn because they know that is the way to improve themselves and to realize their dreams and the dreams for their children. So the opportunity is ripe. Here, it's ripe across our country, in my opinion.
And I think, when we look at what happened in Springdale and what has happened across the country with the work that we've been doing, and we did change our name. If you keep hearing family literacy and family learning, we changed our name in November because we felt like literacy, like our clothes were getting too tight, because it really was about learning and not just about literacy. So we are families learning. But we were fortunate enough to have the private sector. Toyota was our largest funder. They've given us now over $50 million. So if you don't now drive a Toyota, I would suggest that your next car be one. They have helped us a great deal. But they allowed us to come in to Springdale and other communities across the country, as we're doing again, and seed an innovation that we had worked hard to make sure that this model was something that could be adapted, but also had the structure that we knew was necessary in order for it to work. So I think the private sector was the catalyst in this. We funded for 3 years, and then that was the seed that then took root. And so I think that was a really important part of the equation. And I think from there, taking the learning from everybody, continuing that network and continuing to grow that. So many of the programs that we worked with 23 years ago are still a part of our network, and we're still learning from them. So I think your question about seeding something in a community, once the community can see it and see that it's working and maybe showing the results in student achievement and parent outcomes that are better than the results they've been getting, then it starts to take hold. And I think just being able to see it and visualize it, sometimes it's hard when you come into a community, and I think often models are just lobbed over the fence at somebody. Look at this, here's a nice model, take this one. But there's no training and technical assistance and growth opportunity for people to see how it fits and live with it a little bit and see how the parents and the students are embracing it and then make modifications. So I think there are a couple of lessons. One is the private sector has a lot to do with it, but to seed an innovation. But secondly, it really is about more than just saying this is a wonderful way to do this. It's really coming in and rolling up your sleeves and trying to help people get better at what they're doing and embrace it in a very systematic and research-based way.
Let me share some statistics with you that you may not be aware of. This year, for the first time, the majority of children in our schools are from minorities: Hispanic, African American, Asian. In 20 years, in another generation, the majority of Americans will be from minorities. Between now and 2050, 90% of the growth in our labor force will be from immigrant children. So I would argue that education is vital. This investment we make in this generation and the preceding generations are vital if we're going to be competitive in a global economy. So those of you that are getting older like I, if you want your Social Security and your Medicare, you better invest in this generation, this second generation immigrants.
You know, that's such a great point, that this is not just about education, but we're really talking about, an economic imperative, right? I want to go back to a little bit of what you said, Alex, about really effective efforts. I mean, your organization is across the state. I'm curious to hear about effective efforts in supporting Hispanic families and Hispanic students that you have seen that we should really be learning from.
Again, I think you all came to the right place with starting off in terms of some of those models and learning. And obviously, a lot of that was with the poultry industry up here and in Northwest Arkansas. That was the first one that developed a lot of our relationship with the immigrant community. And when we saw a lot of that first influx, it was up here. And so I do also have to say, along with my other colleagues, that here in Arkansas, the fact that diverse stakeholders came together quickly around this issue, that it wasn't something that was just about the education system, it was about the big companies around here that were benefiting from it. It was from our political leaders that acknowledged that there was this need, and I think that helped usher a lot of this through. And then also with Springdale, I think here in Arkansas in general, we value our schools and the culture around schools. When we start looking at other communities outside of Springdale, obviously the school is the organizing factor. That really is it in a community. And there's a lot of pride around those schools and the organizing there. And hence you see a lot of enthusiasm for our team sports naturally around here in Arkansas. And Friday nights, you can't find anybody in this state. Everyone is at a football game. But one thing I think growing up in Fayetteville is a sister city, and this was much to my frustration at that time, but now in my new roles in life, I can appreciate it, was how Springdale really, they had a value of excellence in everything. It wasn't just sports and the Battle of the Bulldogs. But it was also in education. And I remember coming here and visiting Springdale High School, feeling that, in some ways at that time, envy, because they just had a new high school and updated, and we in Fayetteville were still, at that time, hadn't taken such steps. But it wasn't about the physical entity. It was the physical entity that led to the quality of education, the celebration of what education meant to them, and the value of that. And I think that also really helped translate well for when our immigrant population came, because they were going to and wanted to continue to be a leader in education. And so again, it just led to naturally, okay, these are our children in our classroom. We give everyone else the same quality education, so we are as well. And then I also have to say, and this leads to best practices, as you were asking about the other parts of the state, and that is the communities that we see exceeding the best in this work are those that forge from the very get-go relationships with Hispanic families and Hispanic organizations in their community. And I really have to applaud Dr. Rollins. Some of the folks that he has and still on staff in relationship are folks that literally 20 years ago were the first ones engaged. I mean, that shows, their commitment, energy, but there wasn't at any time a hesitation in acknowledging that maybe there wasn't some things they understood in terms of the culture, maybe there wasn't some things that they understood, and that it was important to include Hispanics themselves as part of that process. And when we see that integration happen from the beginning, that's definitely where we see other communities evolving. If I have to lift up at this current time another community in Arkansas that's doing an exceptional job, and that would be DeQueen, Arkansas, that 50% of their student body right now is actually Mexican American. Their elementary school was actually just recognized at the national level for their accomplishments and outreach, but a very comparable story of inclusion of the families from the get-go. Now even taking that to the next level of encouraging, and you have folks in the elementary school that had graduated, as was shared in the story there, some of the teachers graduated from the schools, went on to go teach. They were encouraged to think of teaching, and all in all, it was kind of kept within a community of support to each other and ongoing. So definitely, though, I have to lift up, because I do wish more communities would take on something like the Family Literacy Program. I know too often, with the work we do at the state level, and we've had teachers mention to us the pressures they feel of sometimes the ills of society being placed on the backs of the teachers to solve. But at the same time, for communities that have taken on that leadership, as Springdale has done, and this integrated approach of not being afraid to bring the families into the classrooms and acknowledging that for the student to achieve their potential, the families also have to achieve their potential and have to be bought in. I think that that is just, again, a model that I know so many of our other districts here in Arkansas are looking at up here, and in different formats are looking to replicate, but really I think that's something that really makes Springdale unique and special.
So before we turn it over to the audience for their questions, I did want to ask, and we know that resources play a critical role in helping scale up models that work. If you all had a magic wand, where would you invest those resources?
I guess if I could add something that I was actually speaking with some of Dr. Rollins' staff about coming into here in this session, counseling and social workers are two areas. Again, teachers, I have to applaud Springdale for really taking the first leadership of growing their own with the Hispanics. I think there's more that we can do there, but they've taken a tremendous first step with the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. That said, we are chronically in a shortage as a state, and it's not just Springdale, as a state, in individuals that are certified in counseling, and then now with the budget cuts to DHS, and social workers not being actively available, present, hired by the school district is also very limiting for so many of the families, because again, there is a correlation between families that find themselves, and individuals that are ELLs and those that find themselves in need of social work and support. And then I would say as well, the counseling has that additional effect, as I've shared before with our undocumented students, in that in addition to not having sufficient folks even sufficiently trained necessarily on alternatives to folks that have different statuses or opportunities in life. And I think the more information that we can get out there, that there are alternatives, that there are options, making sure that everyone are equally empowered and aware, again, I think would help, especially because, again, we're talking about 11,000 students, 11,000 individuals at this current snapshot, that we are talking about limiting their future because they don't necessarily know all those options. So.
I think we're trying some new initiatives, relatively new. Career coaches are also a very important part of this conversation. We want our children to be educated at the highest possible level, and then we want their personal interests to dictate to them whether they go into the workforce or onto higher ed. But career coaches can play a real role there. And if you go back to the video that we showed, this idea of a support system behind children, especially children in transition, is so very important. So counselors, social workers, career coaches, and really helping continue to train all of us so that we can be personal advisors to these kids. I think we've come a long way, but we need to strengthen and deepen that relationship, because we do need a caring adult behind every child.
And I think all of those services also available to the parents and the families themselves. You know, the wraparound services, the support services for the whole family. And I think in Springdale, family literacy has taken root. It's really shown phenomenal success. But at the same time, there's still challenges. You know, there's not enough resources for the adult portion of the program. And that's really such a critical link to be able to educate the parents. So as it expands, you know, I would like to, if I could wave a magic wand, see it certainly in every school, high school and middle school. One of the things we're doing now and experimenting with across the country that I hope that will be embraced with Hispanic families and other immigrant families is service learning, family service learning, so that families then start a process, not just a day of giving, but you know, what is a process you would use to identify a problem that you want to solve as a family? And then families come together and design an activity and design an ongoing sustainable approach to family service learning so that we start getting the message to people that this is their community. You know, they can take charge in their community. They have a right and the opportunity to do that. But it takes some knowledge and some really systematized approach to help that. So if I could wave a magic wand, I would have that for all families in Springdale as well.
And I'm more interested in university experiences, and I have a special place in my heart for dreamers, for the undocumented young people whose lives are being, the potential is being reduced because they happen to be undocumented. They were brought here, they didn't come here. But there's a subgroup I think we need to think about. Latinas, whether we look at our campus or we look nationally in terms of higher education, are doing remarkably well. It's the young Latino men. They're having real serious challenges. And if we look at mentoring or we're looking at holistic approaches, I think that's a subgroup that could use some special attention.
If I could just add one other thing that my colleagues just sparked my recollection on, and that's the issue of certification and ELL certification. I have to again applaud the Springdale School District that they facilitate that opportunity for their teachers. But there's so many districts right now, especially around the southwest part of our state, west part of our state, rural communities, that they can't afford that professional development to get their teachers certified. And right now, we do not require as a state the way that other states do that all teachers be ELL certified, although at the same time we know that it's very rare that in the course of a teacher's career, especially here in Arkansas, that they don't have a student that doesn't speak English as their first language. So that I think is something that it's not again unique to Springdale, actually maybe more for the rest of the state, but something that from a policy perspective or even a financial perspective is something that's valuable for investment.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. We'd love to turn it over to the audience and see if there are any folks that have questions for the panel.
You've left them speechless.
I know. I told everyone everything.
My name is Luz Morlet, and I work at St. Joseph Catholic Church in Fayetteville. If I had a magic wand... thank you. My name is Luz Morlet, and I work at St. Joseph Catholic Church in Fayetteville. And as I was saying, if I had a magic wand, I would let those dreamers go to college. I have one right here. My question to the panel is, how possible do you see this experience for these dreamers that will end in 2 years? Because there's nothing else beyond that to be able to fulfill the dreams.
I can take a first stab on that. The reality is we just don't know at this stage. And really, we as whether it's as a Latino community, as advocates of dreamers, or as folks that just generally consider themselves allies, the decision, what results, is going to be up to us in the end. There's a lot that could potentially happen, whether in regards to this election, whether in regards to what becomes the constitution of our politicians in DC or here in Little Rock. And so it's really impossible for us to say at this time. Instead, what we can give is more words of hope, that it was because of dreamers and advocates like many that are in the room here that made this program possible. And so there's no reason to say that our continued work our continued organizing, our continued mobilization would make that increasingly more possible. Voices like yours, though, need to be heard. I can't even tell you enough, though, how many times our politicians, they're tired of seeing my face and the face of those of us that are common advocates. They need to hear it more generally from the community and from all diverse faces. And again, I think that's something that's a testament to Dr. Rollins and the Springdale School District, the diverse allies that are willing to stand up there and express the need for this. Here in Arkansas, we also count on a lot of support, again, from our corporations and employers that believe in also the need of the Dreamers and are willing to express that. So I think it's a tremendous program, obviously. We are thrilled that your son is taking advantage, definitely should renew and take advantage of the opportunity of renewal. And then from there, it's up to us. So I put it as a challenge to all of us to never stop and to keep going and to put pressure so that it's not just a temporary 2-year fix, but that we get the permanent DREAM Act at the federal level from our Congress. But thank you for your question.
And I'll just add, one of the things our office is doing is trying to identify resources for our Dreamers, our DACA students. What are those organizations that are offering assistance for DACA renewal? Because we know that the fee is expensive. What are organizations that are offering scholarship assistance to our Dreamers? The Dream US, for example. We came out with a guide called Graduate, which includes a section on just resources for our Dreamer community, and it'll highlight some of those states that are offering the in-state tuition. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think having more of those testimonials from the students, they're a powerful voice, will help us continue to make sure that this is an issue that's not lost in the mix amongst all the other things that we're dealing with as a country, but that it's on the forefront because of the economic implications that it has for our country.
I would just add that I think the shift in thinking and philosophy is extremely positive. I'm seeing corporate Northwest Arkansas take a leadership role. They're examining the issue. We know in our schools we're preparing our ELL children to be successful at all levels, and given the opportunity, these young people will help take our cities and our state forward. I'm very encouraged about the future of getting this legislation where we all want it to be.
And if you look at the Gallup poll data, what is remarkable when Americans are asked, do you favor legalization for undocumented youth, the response is about 80% in the positive across political parties, and there really isn't much of a spread. It's like 82% for Democrats and 78% for Republicans. So we have a political system that's broken. We all, I think, would agree to that. And we have a Congress which is unresponsive to we the people. And I think Maria and her work and the work that you all can do might change it in a couple months, in November. So vote. And I say that with every group that I meet, especially Latino population, which doesn't vote like they should. So vote and throw some people out of office.
Luis Restrepo, the University of Arkansas, also a professor of Spanish, parent of 2. My issue is, this is really wonderful. I applaud the changes that have been done, all this innovation. And I want to see is the possibility of that dream of English plus. And this is basically, if we're talking of Latinos, I'm talking about that multilingualism is an asset. It's not only a right, but it's an asset. And I know that we live in official English state, but can we move beyond that narrow-mindedness and open that it's not only Spanish for Hispanics, but it's Spanish for Arkansas to be global, to think that we can choose certain languages that are linked languages that link us to millions and millions, and that will connect, and it's really, I know that other schools, NPR highlighted some schools that have received immigrants, like Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas, in North Carolina, and they're able to do a language immersion programs where they start early on with Anglo speakers next to Spanish speakers. First, the Anglo parents pulled out of the school. Now when they see the benefit, you know, they have 4 or 5 different kindergartens and elementary schools with bilingual programs that are benefiting everyone. So is there anything in this magic wand that we can consider that multilingualism is a possibility for Arkansas? That is nothing against English, it's actually plus English. I'm really proud that my daughter is an English major, but she's bilingual. And that's going to help her, and I think it will help all our communities. So, and I say that for some of I'm sorry, I may be taking too long. The people that are making the decisions, the very wise decisions to some extent today in education in this country, especially in Arkansas, bilingualism, it might not be a big ticket, but when I go and talk to the parents, that bilingualism of retaining that core things of who they are, and sometimes is worked around and felt around the language, can we envision a possibility? I know linguistically it is. I know that linguistically the benefits of multilingualism are many, so can we explore ways that this is possible? I know that Springdale and Northwest Arkansas can, and that's an invitation.
Well, and we also know that bilingualism and multilingualism actually increases student achievement across the board, right? So I'm curious, Dr. Rollins, what your reaction is to that question.
Well, I think it's front and center. I think it's a growth area for us. I know our staff is looking at that now and thinking and planning in terms of how we can bring the strength of that dual approach forward. It'll be really interesting to see our preparedness and readiness to go down that road tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, but it is in front of our team today.
If I might say, and Dr. Restrepo, I appreciate, he's a longtime champion of this and really has helped build this awareness amongst several different stakeholders in the state that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for his willingness to stand up and talk about this issue. So I thank you, Dr. Restrepo, for your continued leadership on this issue. And again, to say for all that this is another wonderful opportunity with our state legislature, with the elections coming up, with conversations with our candidates around this. That decision falls with our state legislature at the end of the day. So it's building their interest and compassion on this issue that's going to be able to build some leadership in terms of making that dream that you have into a reality. In the interim, I've been excited to see from the last session the ability of looking at some more flexibility to our public school districts, and with that the schools of innovation. And with that, again, have to applaud the Springdale School District for being the single school district that took the most of the schools of innovation and those that were allotted with this first time, and very well deserved. And not even just specific schools, but whole ranges of schools. And I can't wait to see on the State Board of Education what comes of that. But it's using those opportunities. I know charter schools are incubators for some of this in Arkansas, but the schools of innovation are hopefully putting some of that ability right into the hands of the districts themselves. And so if there is some inertia with our politicians, which we know sometimes there is maybe some other opportunities to take some of that into their own hands.
Well, my name is Samuel Rivera Lopez, and I'm a student here. I was really just trying to think, okay, you guys say a lot of things about like social capital and bonding capital and the gap between that. But a lot of that thing has to do with a mentality. Like, I'm a Hispanic, and you know, I want to get to places, and I want to have a dream, and I want to do many things. But there's always a mentality there that, hey, your family, like, they're there for you, but half the time you feel like they don't believe in you. But where's the people, you know, bringing you up? You know, like, is that what you guys are trying to do? Like, I just want to know, where's the bridge? What is the bridge? You know?
The bridge are being created by many, many people, but the Cisneros Center, that is the focus of the program. to build networks, to build relationships, to build partnerships, to bridge the gap between the Anglo and the Hispanic community. And there's another program that's just begun in Northwest Arkansas called Engage Northwest Arkansas, and it's being funded by Tyson and by Walmart and by other partners such as the University of Arkansas, and Luis is part of it. And they're making an attempt to bridge the communities in Northwest Arkansas because that's how we become stronger. And by the way, that's how we become more economically successful. So the problem with integration is it takes time. And the time spans we're looking at are at the generational level. And when you're my age, someday, you're going to be living in a very, very different society where you're the majority. Think of that. And I think we all should keep that in the back of our minds because this is the great American experiment, and we're simply in the newest chapter of it.
You know, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Samuel Rivera Lopez.
Samuel, and the reality is that the change starts with stories like yours. So I would actually love to talk to you about your story and what you see as the issues, because we can sit here and talk about what we think the right things to do are until our faces are blue, but you know what needs to be done more than any of us. So thank you for asking the question, and I do encourage you to talk to us and to talk to the fellows who are here from the Cisneros Center to see what can be done and what should be done.
Thank you.
I would just add, we go into work every day with you in mind, your other peers. How can we make sure that we can get the information to you on financial aid, on scholarships, on the importance of college? How can we make sure that we get critical information to your parents? And so anytime we meet with students, we always ask, you know, how is the information reaching you and how best can our office serve you? Because at the end of the day, you are our client. We go into work to make sure that the students and the teachers have the resources that they need, or that we can shine a spotlight on those gaps that persist, or bring attention to those amazing testimonials of families that are coming together and that are supporting the education of their children. So I'd love to connect with you after. And the president launched his My Brother's Keeper initiative, and I heard one of the panelists mention that that's an area where we need to focus more attention on. And there's some really good work happening with public-private partnerships. They're creating that bridge to make sure that we can reach more of our young Latino males.
Close it.
All right, I'm Jennifer Aguirre. I'm one of the Cisneros Fellows, and my focus area is on education. So I taught in Baltimore for 3 years. I'm a high school teacher. I taught Spanish. And one of the main things that I felt I was able to do for my students was they came to me one day and asked me to go to Spain. And I didn't know where I was going to get the money from, but I was able to actually raise the funds and do it. And I think that would not have happened had students like Samuel said something to me to say, hey, this is something we want to do, is it possible? So I appreciate that you said something. And I think that has a lot to do with the power of student voices. Mm-hmm. And I know that the Family Literacy Program is doing amazing things with parents, but I want to hear more from you. Are there initiatives or programs for students to be involved in the conversations that you are doing every day, have a seat at the table to talk about those experiences that many people don't get to really hear about, and seeing initiatives on student leadership as far as being involved in that way? Not just the parents, but I think that the students also have such a strong voice to also advocate for themselves and their families as well.
That is such an excellent point.
Mireya, can you speak to that a little bit?
outside of the school district. Obviously, Dr. Rollins can speak within, and Springdale School District offers a tremendous offering of different extracurricular activities and social work. But again, as I shared before, the relationship and opportunities for our community-based organizations has also been absolutely tremendous. And one of the things that we do, and we've been able to offer to several students that are part of the Springdale School District, is a leadership program called Change Agents. It's a 9-month program for first and second generation immigrants who purely and simply, like yourself, see a change that needs to happen and know that and be willing to be part of that change and that process. And so we offer some training, some opportunities. We've helped over 100 youth in just a course of 2.5 years from across the state of Arkansas in terms of having some access to some of this information and knowledge. But more importantly, it's a promise, it's a commitment that you are going to have a support team, cheerleaders, as was talked about here, to walk alongside you for those 9 months in realizing that project, that change, that difference that you want to see happen. Because we know many times it does, and we hope that you get that from the household, from your natural networks in life, but we know that others many times don't. And so this really is a program of being able to get some accompanied assistance in realizing and unleashing your potential through you actually getting to do the work yourself and knowing you're supported through a network and others in that process. So amongst the others here, I'm sure that talked about initiatives, we'd love to talk with you as well afterward if you're ever interested, but just something that, again, I think with that exciting partnerships, again, and again, highlighting with best practices. School districts that are the ones that succeed are those that see this as a partnership with the broader community. We're grateful that the Springdale School District has allowed us to do that with our students here.
The term advisory is central to our school system. I believe we have 72 career teachers in our district. They have corporate advisors working as full partners with each of them. And basically, students who have interest in trades or careers have an opportunity not just to work with their faculty advisor, but to work with some of the really most proficient professionals in the field. And that these people come in and they talk together in terms of this is what this career path looks like. If you have interest or there's aptitudes available, there's constant dialogue going on where kids can find out if that's a good connection for them. And we've reorganized school many ways in order to better connect kids to the learning. Academies in medicine and architecture and engineering, safety and law, information technologies, food science, etc. So there's an opportunity for young people to try to find their niche and to talk with professionals in the field. So maybe those kind of things will answer many questions for youngsters who are trying to determine just which way to go.
Well, we have one quick question.
And I'll be quick. Dr. Ricky Tompkins, Vice President for Learning at Northwest Arkansas Community College, and I think I'd be remiss in talking about the community college's role in the growth of education for Hispanic and Latinos. And in Northwest Arkansas, right now, 14% of our student population is Hispanic and Latino. This is despite the financial issue we deal with students having to pay international tuition and not even eligible for out-of-state tuition. That said, more proud, this is the highest group when it comes to retention at Northwest Arkansas Community College. This is our most engaged population. The president of our Student Government Association is Latina. This is the second year in a row a Latina has been elected as president of our Student Government Association. The community college plays a key role in the smaller class size, and I appreciate it being mentioned that it is a vital part of the process. Yes. It gets them going. It gets them that greater understanding that, yes, they can succeed on the college level. And it gets them to the point that they can either go to employment or they can transfer to a four-year institution such as U of A. But I'm very proud of my institution and the work that we're continuing to do, and certainly want to play a role as education continues to grow in the Hispanic community in Northwest Arkansas and beyond.
And with that, I also need to recognize the LIFE program that NWAC does as well. That actually sets up that mentorship between current students, the majority of them first time going to school, minorities themselves, and then going in to the various high schools here, encouraging those students to think of higher education, and then offering them some special trainings and opportunities. I think that's a tremendously unique and special program, and I definitely applaud NWAC as well for also piloting that in this region.
And I sure agree with that. The health professions program, our nursing program, has just been a phenomenal partnership between our schools and our community college, and we're so thankful for that.
Thank you, Dr. Rollins, for hosting us. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here today. And Alex, I want to turn to you. Thank you for being here. This has been an incredible experience so far.
Thank you all. Like I said earlier, I'm very inspired by the good work that's happening here, and I am serious when I say I'd love to take you all on the road with me. There are other communities that are very resistant to change, and you guys have a great story to tell. The leadership that's present here, the commitment, the vision for the future of Springdale looks so promising because of all the good work you guys are doing. So I'm just humbled by the opportunity to be able to connect with you all and to be able to share with our colleagues at the White House and at the Department of Education just the progress and promise of Springdale. Thank you.
Thank you very much.